Two rusted mouths stood in the grass like eyes staring back at them. Not fence posts. Not farm junk. Something that breathed. Early autumn. Cold air. A sky washed in pale grey. Eric and Lucas pedalled beyond the last tidy garden, past the quiet edge of their German town, out where fields turned wild and gold. The path crackled under their tires. Corn stalks, dead and brittle. Trees watching like old sentries. They had always hunted forgotten places. Eric, the brake. Lucas, the throttle. Together, a balance. Enough recklessness to move. Enough caution to live. Lucas saw them first. Two cylinders jutting from the ground at a matching slant. Dark iron. Flakes of green paint clinging like old moss. He dropped his bike and pushed through the weeds. Eric rolled to a stop and followed. The pipes rose about a metre. Open throats. Cold rims. Eric leaned close. No wind on the field. But the pipe exhaled cool air. Ventilation, he whispered. Not random. The word changed the field. A vent meant a room. A room meant an entrance. An entrance meant a choice. They moved in widening circles. Boots swished through hay-coloured grass. Weeds thinned near a patch of ground scabbed with moss. Lucas kicked aside sticks. Eric pulled at a mat of leaves. Concrete. Round. A slab with an iron ring fused by rust. They stared at it like it might blink. "Help me," Eric said. Finger by finger, the ring surrendered. The lid shifted with a grinding moan that crawled up their arms. Together, they rolled it aside. The sound travelled out over the field and died with no echo. Beneath, a shaft yawned, black, wet, patient. Metal ladder. Rungs bolted to poured concrete. A smell rose up. Iron, damp stone, lock time. They didn't speak for a long breath. The field above felt honest. Open sky. Plain earth. But this was a lie under the skin. They backed away to the bikes and unlatched their small packs. Routine gear. Flashlights. Spare batteries. Rope. A crowbar. Phones close to full. Lucas smiled. "We brought everything and didn't know why." They knew why now. Clouds slid across the sun. The light cooled. The world hushed. Eric shone his beam down. Ladder intact. Walls sweating. Darkness swallowing the cone of light. The bottom out of reach. "We come back tomorrow," he said. Even as he said it, he knew he was lying to himself. Lucas clipped his pack, set his foot on the first rung, and tested. The iron groaned but held. He looked up, grin crooked, asking and daring at once. Eric's chest tightened. He swung over the mouth and followed. Step by step. Clink of shoes. Air growing colder, heavier, older. The circle of sky shrank to a pale coin, then to a pin. At last, concrete underfoot. A low chamber. Their breaths loud. Flashlights quivered across slick walls. The tunnel ahead was a slit of dark leading out of the room like a throat. Everything smelled of rust and silent years. Lucas's beam leapt forward, eager. Eric's light moved slow, deliberate, mapping edges, counting hazards. Dust filmed the floor. Bits of glass glinted. A bench shelf slumped in a corner, its metal peeling into orange scabs. On the far wall, a pair of collapsed boots. Leather cracked like old bark. Someone had stood here once. Someone had walked away. Or not. A drop of water fell from the ceiling. Another. Then another. Each hit echoed like a ticking clock. "Listen," Lucas said. They listened. Only dripping. Only breath. Only the big, waiting quiet. Still, the place felt inhabited. Not by people. By intent. Eric angled his light. Red strokes bled through slime on the wall. Numbers, arrows, the ghost of a system. Not a cellar. Not a farm drain. Something built to last and to hide. He swallowed. "We keep to the main corridor. No side turns. No heroics." Lucas nodded, but his eyes shone. Curiosity was a current inside him. It pulled. They stepped into the corridor. The floor slick. The ceiling low. The sound of their feet multiplied by concrete until it seemed a third set walked behind them. They turned once. Together. Nothing there. Only wall and wet. They went on. Behind them, the round mouth of the shaft shrank to a glow, then to grey, then to a thought. Ahead, the corridor curved away, evasive, secretive, as if the earth itself did not want to be read in straight lines. They had crossed the threshold. The field and the sky were stories for another day. Down here, a different story had already begun. The field above had vanished. Only the ladder remained, a thin thread between two worlds. Lucas went first, his breath quick, shoulders trembling with excitement. Eric followed, slower, his hands slick on the cold metal rungs. Step by step, the surface light faded. Grey became black. Wind became silence. The air grew heavier with every meter, tasting of rust and wet stone. The clink of their shoes echoed down the shaft. One sound became two. Two became many, until it felt like a crowd was climbing with them. Eric paused, heart pounding. Only Lucas's voice floated up, amused. "Keep moving, we are almost there." Finally, their boots struck concrete. A small chamber, barely high enough to stand. Walls of poured stone, dripping with condensation. The air pressed close, thick and cold. Eric wiped his palm across a wall. Water streaked down like sweat. Lucas swung his flashlight in a wide arc. The beam caught a narrow passage leading forward. It looked less like a hallway and more like the throat of some enormous creature. A dark slit swallowing their light. "Let's see where it goes," Lucas said, grinning. Eric didn't answer. His voice was locked behind his teeth. They unpacked quickly. Flashlights checked. Batteries loaded. Rope coiled and ready. It felt like a ritual they had practiced their entire lives. Only this time, it was real. The first steps were cautious. Boots slid on slime-slick concrete. The sound of their breathing seemed too loud. The tunnel bent almost immediately. No straight lines, only curves that hid what lay ahead. Eric's beam swept the floor. Dust. Shards of glass. Something glinted, a broken watch face, long dead, reflecting cold light. A hollow plunk echoed somewhere deeper, like water dripping into a pit. They pressed on. After a few meters, the corridor opened into a small square room. Lucas's light revealed collapsed shelves in the corner. Metal flaked into orange rust, crumbling at a touch. An overturned stool lay nearby, legs twisted like broken bones. Then Eric saw them, a pair of boots by the far wall. Old, cracked leather. Laces stiff and frozen. He crouched, his stomach tightening. Who had left them here? How long ago? And why had they never returned? "Hey," Lucas whispered. "Look at this." On the opposite wall, beneath a film of moss, red strokes peeked through. Numbers. Arrows. Symbols painted by a hand long gone. Lucas scraped away the slime with his gloved thumb, revealing faded markings. "This wasn't random," he said. "This place had a system. Sections. Routes." Eric's jaw tightened. If there's a system, there's a reason to hide it. The silence pressed on them like weight. Even Lucas shifted uneasily now, his grin a little forced. They moved deeper. The corridor ahead split in two. Left or right. No signs remained clear enough to guide them. "Left," Lucas decided quickly. "Always go left." "Or always get lost," Eric muttered. The air was colder here, sharp against their lungs. Each breath fogged briefly in the light before vanishing. Their boots squelched through patches of slime. Drops fell steadily from above, hitting the floor with hollow, metallic notes. Then, a sound that didn't belong. Low. Faint. A hum, like a machine buried deep below. Eric froze. "Did you hear that?" Lucas tilted his head. "Probably water." "No," Eric said, his voice low. "That was mechanical." The hum faded, leaving only their breathing and the steady drip-drip of water. Eric wanted to turn back. Every instinct screamed to climb that ladder and seal the hatch forever. But Lucas's eyes burned with curiosity. He had come too far to quit now. "Let's just see one more chamber," Lucas said. "Then we decide." Reluctantly, Eric nodded. They continued forward, their lights cutting thin arcs through the darkness. Minutes passed. The tunnel widened again, then narrowed, twisting like a snake. Graffiti appeared on the walls. First a name, then dates, then symbols that meant nothing and everything all at once. The deeper they went, the more Eric felt it, the sensation of being watched. The echoes of their steps no longer matched their own rhythm. It was as if another set of feet trailed behind, always just out of sight. He turned sharply, light stabbing back the way they'd come. Nothing there. Only dripping water. Only shadows. Lucas laughed softly, though his voice wavered. Getting paranoid, little brother. But neither of them really believed it was a joke. Somewhere ahead, beyond yet another curve, the faint hum stirred again. This time, closer. This time, undeniable. It throbbed like a heartbeat in the walls. And they knew, without speaking, that whatever lay ahead was still alive. The hum grew louder. Not constant. Pulsing. Like breath. Like something waiting in the dark. Lucas moved ahead, his beam jerking side to side. Excitement burned in him, sharp and dangerous. Eric followed, tense, every nerve screaming retreat. The corridor widened, revealing a junction. 3 paths. Left, right, and straight. They froze. Graffiti marked the walls here, thick layers scrawled over decades. Black, red, yellow, some words legible, others warped into shapes like twisted runes. Lucas wiped a patch clean with his glove. German letters, faded but readable. Hilfe. Below it, a shaky phrase in English. Help. This big yellow one. Eric's stomach dropped. Help against what? What yellow one? Lucas gave a shaky laugh. Probably just some prank. But neither of them believed it. The left-hand tunnel yawned like a throat. The right bent sharply, hiding its end. The center ran straight for a few meters before curving away. Eric pointed to the main passage. We go straight. No detours. Lucas hesitated, staring down the right-hand tunnel, his light catching on a jagged hole in the wall. Pipes and wires jutted out like bones from a wound. Some looked freshly broken, as if smashed recently. Reluctantly, he nodded. Straight it is. They pressed forward, boots crunching grit. Every sound seemed amplified. Their breaths, their steps, even the whisper of fabric as they moved. The tunnel curved again, never offering a long view ahead. It felt deliberate, built to confuse. Then Lucas stopped suddenly. Look. Eric's beam followed his brother's gesture and froze. A door. Not a flimsy hatch. A massive slab of metal set into the concrete wall. Its hinges corroded, black with age. Lucas touched it, felt the cold bite through his glove. This isn't a drain or a cellar. This is military. Has to be. Eric's breath quickened. Cold War bunker. Lucas grinned, wild and eager. Or something better. Together, they shoved. The door groaned like a dying creature, echoing through the tunnel. Finally, it gave way, swinging inward with a crash that made Eric flinch. Beyond lay another stretch of corridor. Narrower. Darker. The air stale, like a place sealed for decades. They stepped through. 20 meters ahead. Another door. Identical. Waiting. Eric groaned. Seriously. Lucas laughed under his breath. Lead defenses. Whatever's down here, they didn't want anyone getting to it. They forced the second door open. Then a third. And a fourth. Each one heavier than the last. Each scream of metal worse than the one before. Eric's shoulders ached. His throat burned with the damp air. This is insane, he muttered. But they kept moving. Neither willing to admit fear, neither willing to turn back. Graffiti appeared between the doors. Crude faces, jagged symbols. Phrases in different languages. Some were almost mocking. Welcome to hell. Others were simple names and dates. Reminders that others had been here, though not recently. One message stopped them cold. Painted in dripping yellow letters. Don't open the last door. Lucas stared, breathing hard. His voice was barely a whisper. You think that's a joke? Eric didn't answer. He didn't want to. The corridor bent sharply and then widened. Their flashlights swept out over a vast space, a hall larger than anything they'd seen so far. The ceiling soared beyond their reach, black and damp. Their voices echoed back delayed, warped, as if the room itself was speaking. Dozens of pipes jutted from the walls, some sealed, others broken open like mouths frozen mid-scream. The air thrummed faintly here, that same mechanical hum now strong enough to feel in their chests. Lucas spun in a slow circle, whispering, This is the system. Those 2 pipes on the surface? Just the tip. Eric's stomach twisted. The pipes above had seemed small. Harmless. But this was a buried network, sprawling and ancient. Across the floor lay the wreckage of corroded metal boxes. One had burst open, spilling fragments of rusted machinery. Lucas knelt and sifted through the debris. His light caught a small plaque with faded numbers. 1962. Eric stared, cold creeping through him. 60s. Cold War. This was never a farm field. It was a cover. Lucas smiled, triumphant. Exactly. We are standing in history. Eric shook his head slowly. No. We are standing in someone's secret. At the far end of the hall, a line of lockers clung to the wall. Most hung open and empty, but a few remained sealed, stenciled with German warnings, Zugang verboten. Access forbidden. Lucas reached out as if to open one. Don't, Eric snapped. Lucas froze, then stepped back reluctantly. The hum pulsed again, deeper now. It felt alive, as though the labyrinth itself had a heartbeat. Eric turned in a slow circle, every hair on his body standing on end. Somewhere, beyond these doors and pipes, something was still working. Still waiting. Lucas met his gaze, grinning nervously. Ready to see what's next. Eric swallowed hard. His light trembled. No, he whispered. But we are going anyway. The hum was constant now. Low. Steady. Like the pulse of a giant machine buried beneath their feet. Lucas moved first, drawn forward like a moth to flame. Eric followed reluctantly, his chest tight. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. But curiosity pulled them deeper, step by step. The hall stretched wide, its far walls lost to shadow. Their lights barely reached the ceiling, revealing jagged cracks like old scars. Pipes lined the walls, some sealed, others broken and drooling rust-colored water. The floor was littered with debris. Twisted metal. Rusted tools. Shards of glass that crunched beneath their boots. Everywhere, the smell of decay and iron. Lucas crouched near a collapsed metal box. He brushed away dirt, revealing faded letters stenciled on the side. Look, Eric. These were storage crates. Military issue. He held up a fragment of metal with a date barely visible. 1962. Eric's gut clenched. Cold War. A secret base built when the world teetered on the edge of annihilation. He imagined men working down here, installing door after door, pipe after pipe, never knowing if their work would save lives or doom them. Lucas's voice broke through his thoughts. This isn't just a bunker, he said, excitement flickering in his eyes. This was a project. Something huge. Eric scanned the space, his light catching on a row of tall lockers bolted to the far wall. Most stood open, their contents long gone. But a few remained sealed shut, their handles corroded. German warnings were still visible on the metal. Zugang verboten. Access forbidden. Lucas stepped closer, fingertips brushing one of the sealed doors. His smile was wild, defiant. What do you think is inside? Eric's voice was sharp. Nothing we want to see. For a moment, Lucas hesitated. Then he withdrew his hand, though his curiosity burned hotter than ever. Beside the lockers, Eric found something that made his stomach turn. A gas mask, its rubber stiff and brittle, the eyepieces clouded with mold. He held it up with 2 fingers, then dropped it quickly, wiping his hand on his pants. Someone had worn that mask down here. Someone who might never have left. The hum surged suddenly, vibrating through the soles of their boots. Both brothers froze. This was no illusion. Something below them was active. Something alive. Eric's flashlight trembled in his grip. This place should be dead. Why is it still running? Lucas's grin was sharp and hungry. Exactly. Don't you want to know? No, Eric snapped. I want to leave. But Lucas was already moving toward the next corridor. The passage narrowed again, squeezing them like a throat. The air turned colder, damper. Patches of fungus clung to the walls, pulsing faintly in the beams of their lights. Water dripped steadily, the rhythm maddening. Graffiti returned here, darker and stranger. Phrases in different languages. Some were crude drawings. Others were words that felt like curses. Lucas read one aloud, voice barely above a whisper. Hello, Satan. I love you. The letters glistened as though freshly painted. Eric reached out, touched them. Dry. They shared a look, unsettled, silent. The corridor twisted, then widened again. Ahead stood another door, bigger than any before. A slab of iron so thick it looked like part of the wall itself. Its surface was scarred with scratches and streaks of mineral residue. The hinges were monstrous, built to hold back something that should never be freed. The hum was deafening here. The vibrations rattled their bones. Eric felt it in his teeth, in his skull. Lucas approached slowly, like a worshipper before an altar. Faded stenciled numbers clung to the metal, almost unreadable. "This is it," Lucas whispered, awe in his voice. "The source. The heart of it all." Eric grabbed his arm. "No. We've gone far enough." Lucas didn't move. He pressed his palm to the cold steel. The door seemed to drink the heat from his skin. "What if it's just a machine?" he said. "What if it explains everything? What if it doesn't?" Eric shot back. "What if it's worse than anything we can imagine?" They stared at each other, the hum filling the silence between their words. For the first time, Lucas's confidence wavered. His breath came fast. But still, he didn't step back. "Help me open it," he said finally. "We have to know." Eric shook his head violently. "You open that door, and we may never make it back out." The debate was wordless but fierce, fought in glances and shallow breaths. Lucas's hunger for discovery. Eric's raw terror. Finally, Lucas let out a shuddering sigh and dropped his hand. "Fine," he whispered, though his voice trembled. "Not today." Eric's knees almost gave out with relief. But even as they turned away, both of them knew the truth. The final door would haunt their dreams forever. And one day, Lucas might return alone. Behind them, the hum continued. Relentless. Patient. As if whatever lay beyond was listening and waiting. The door loomed behind them like a silent threat. Lucas's hand still tingled where it had touched the frozen steel. Eric grabbed his shoulder and pulled hard. "We are leaving," Eric said, his voice hoarse. No arguments. No turning back. Lucas's jaw worked as if to protest. But the hum was so strong here, so alive, that even he couldn't ignore the dread building in his chest. He gave a tight nod. "Fine. Let's go." They retraced their steps through the corridor. Or tried to. The tunnels had shifted in their minds, the curves and twists now unrecognizable. Every passage looked the same. Damp concrete, streaks of rust, slime glistening like sweat. Eric's flashlight flickered. He smacked it against his palm, panic rising. The darkness here felt heavier, more alive than before. Behind them, a sound. A soft tap. Then another. Like bare feet slapping wet stone. Lucas spun around, his light cutting a wild arc. Nothing there. Only dripping water. Only shadows. "Just echoes," Lucas muttered, though his voice shook. "Right." Eric didn't answer. The first heavy door appeared ahead. It stood half open, a dark mouth yawning in the corridor. They rushed to it, pushing through. The hinges groaned, louder this time, almost like a scream. Eric froze. The echo didn't fade naturally. It shifted, bouncing forward like something moving with it. "Faster," Eric hissed. They pushed on, door after door. Each one seemed heavier now, as if the tunnels themselves were trying to hold them back. The effort burned their shoulders, their arms, their lungs. Graffiti blurred past. Symbols, warnings, names scrawled by other lost souls. The yellow message they had seen earlier flashed by. "Don't open the last door." Lucas didn't laugh this time. His face was pale, lips pressed tight. At a junction, they hesitated. Had they turned left on the way in? Or right? Eric closed his eyes, picturing their earlier path. The memory was foggy, distorted by fear. "Straight," he said finally. "It has to be straight." They moved forward. The air felt thicker, like breathing through wet cloth. The hum behind them pulsed louder, closer. It wasn't a machine now. It was a heartbeat. A soft whisper slid through the dark. Eric froze, throat dry. "Did you hear that?" Lucas swallowed. What did it say? They both turned their lights back down the corridor. Nothing. Only blackness. But Eric was certain he'd heard a word. One single word. A hiss of breath. "Stay." They ran. Boots pounding. Flashlights jerking wildly, throwing frantic shadows on the walls. The tunnel seemed endless, every curve leading to another, every stretch identical to the last. Finally, the first chamber. The small square room at the base of the shaft. Eric almost sobbed with relief. Above them, a pale circle of daylight. Their way home. Go! Eric yelled. Lucas scrambled onto the ladder, climbing 2 rungs at a time. The metal shook beneath his weight, groaning like a living thing. Eric waited, glancing back over his shoulder. In the far corridor, the darkness moved. Not a shadow. Not a trick of light. It shifted, as though something was gliding forward, slow and deliberate. Lucas, faster. I'm trying. Lucas vanished into the glow above. Eric leapt onto the ladder, climbing so hard his muscles screamed. The hum rose behind him, a roar now, vibrating through his bones. He didn't dare look down. At last, his head broke the surface. Cold autumn air hit his face. The smell of soil and grass and sky filled his lungs. He dragged himself out and collapsed on the ground beside his brother. For a moment, neither spoke. Only gasping breaths. Only wind rustling through the dead cornstalks. The field looked exactly as it had before. Quiet. Ordinary. The 2 rusted pipes standing silently, their mouths turned to the sky. It felt impossible that the nightmare below could exist beneath such a peaceful surface. Eric sat up, chest still heaving. We seal it, he said. Right now. No one else goes down there. Lucas stared at the pipes, eyes wide and haunted. Part of him still burned with the need to know what lay behind that final door. But fear won. For now. He nodded slowly. Yeah. We seal it. They rolled the heavy concrete cover back into place, muscles trembling with effort. When it settled with a final thud, the sound seemed to echo down through the earth, like the end of a heartbeat. The hatch was gone. The pipes were just pipes again. But Eric and Lucas knew the truth. Beneath this field stretched a labyrinth of doors and darkness. Something still lived there, humming and whispering. Something that didn't want to be found. As they retrieved their bicycles, the world felt too bright, too normal. Birds circled in the distance. The breeze stirred the grass. They rode away without looking back. Yet in Lucas's mind, the final door stayed open. He saw it every time he closed his eyes. And he knew, someday, curiosity might drag him back. If he returned, he might not see daylight again.